The twin suns of Vera Prime were just beginning to set, painting the sky in shades of orange and violet. Lena stood at the edge of the landing platform, her boots echoing against the metallic floor. Her heart beat faster with every step she took toward the colony. She hadn't been back here in years, not since the accident that had changed everything. And now, Kyle was back. Her mind raced with questions, memories of the past rushing like an unstoppable river. She remembered the mission, the night everything went wrong, and the moment she realized she might have betrayed the one person she had cared for most. She had tried to warn the team about the dangers of the experimental drive they were testing, but her message hadn't been clear. Kyle had been caught in the explosion, and ever since then, he had disappeared from her life. Until now. The landing bay doors hissed open. A figure stepped out, tall, straight-backed, moving with a confidence that was almost unnatural. Lena froze. Kale. But it wasn't the Kale she remembered. Something in his posture, the sharpness of his gaze, and the coldness in his expression made her stomach twist. His eyes, once warm and teasing, now seemed like polished metal, reflecting nothing but calculation. He looked at her for a long moment. Lena's throat tightened, but she forced herself to meet his gaze. "Lena," he said finally. His voice was the same, yet different. It carried an edge she hadn't heard before. "Kale," she whispered. Her voice trembled despite herself. She wanted to run to him, to hug him, to apologize, but she stopped. She wasn't sure what she would find if she got too close. He nodded once, almost imperceptibly, and walked past her toward the center of the colony. His movements were precise, almost too perfect, as if every step was calculated rather than natural. Lena followed at a distance, noticing how the colonists watched him with a mixture of awe and fear. Some whispered among themselves. Others simply stared. She remembered the Kyle she had known. He would have smiled at the children running around, joked with the engineers, laughed at her clumsy mistakes in the lab. This Kale ignored everyone. He walked as if the world belonged to him, and yet he belonged to no one. Lena kept her distance, her mind turning over every possible explanation. The mission, the explosion. What could have happened to him out there? She knew the rumors, alien experiments, forbidden technologies, enhancements. But she refused to believe them. Kale was human, wasn't he? Or had he changed? She tried to remember the last time she had seen him. The night before the mission, they had been joking in the lab. He had teased her about her stubbornness, and she had promised to be careful. That promise now felt like a lie she had broken herself. She had never imagined that one mistake could cost so much. "Lena," a voice whispered behind her. She jumped slightly, realizing she hadn't been paying attention. A young engineer, one of the colony's assistants, was looking at her nervously. "Kyle, he's different now. Some of us think he's not the same as before." "I know," Lena said softly. Her eyes followed Kyle as he disappeared into the main hall. "I know." She made her way through the hallways, past familiar stations and laboratories, but everything felt alien now. The colony had grown while she was away. New buildings had risen, new technologies had been installed. Yet the emptiness she felt inside was the same. Kale's presence, or rather the absence of the Kale she knew, left a hollow ache in her chest. At the center of the colony, Kale stopped before a large screen displaying planetary data. He moved his hand, swiping through the holographic images with ease. Lena watched him from a distance. He looked powerful, intellectually enhanced, physically sharper. But there was no warmth in his actions, no hint of the boy she had laughed with so many years ago. She wanted to call out, to reach him, but fear and doubt held her back. What if he hated her? What if he blamed her for what had happened? She had lived with that guilt every day, imagining the anger and disappointment she might find in his eyes. The next hours passed slowly. Lena observed Kale interacting with the colony's systems, helping engineers and soldiers with tasks they could not perform alone. He moved faster, thought quicker, and solved problems effortlessly. Yet every interaction felt cold, almost mechanical. He was helping, yes, but there was no connection, no laughter, no camaraderie. Lena knew she had to talk to him, to apologize for what had happened. She had rehearsed her words 1,000 times in her head. "Kyle, I'm sorry. I didn't mean for any of that to happen. It's my fault." But when she finally approached him in the control room, she found herself hesitating. Kyle looked up at her. For a moment, she thought she saw recognition in his eyes. A flicker of something familiar, but it disappeared almost instantly, replaced by the same cold, measured gaze that had haunted her since she first saw him. "You shouldn't be here," he said simply. His words were not angry, not cruel, but firm, as if he were stating a fact, not expressing emotion. "I had to see you," Lena said softly. Her hands trembled slightly. I need to apologize." He didn't answer. Instead, he turned back to the holographic display, moving his hands with precise motions. Lena felt a lump form in her throat. She had expected resistance, but this indifference was harder to face. She watched him silently, studying the changes. His movements were too perfect, his reflexes too fast. She had read reports about alien enhancements, technologies that could alter the human body and mind, but she had never imagined seeing them firsthand in Kale. She realized that whatever had happened during the mission had changed him in ways she could barely understand. Hours passed. The sun had fully set, leaving the colony bathed in the soft glow of artificial lights. Lena finally spoke again, her voice firmer this time. "Kale, please. I know you're different now. I know you're not the same person I knew. But I can't stop caring about you. I need you to know that." He paused, his hands hovering over the controls. For a brief second, he looked at her, not with warmth, but with something like curiosity. "Why do you care?" he asked, his voice calm, controlled. Lena swallowed hard. Because you're still Kale. You might not feel like it, you might not act like it, but I know the person you were, the person you are deep down, still exists. I need to believe that." He didn't answer immediately. The silence stretched between them, filled with unspoken words and years of separation. Lena felt tears prick at the corners of her eyes, but she blinked them away. She had to stay strong, had to reach him somehow. Finally, Kale spoke. "You were always too emotional," he said, almost matter-of-factly. "Too quick to act without calculation. That's why things happened." Lena's heart sank. He blamed her. Or maybe he was stating the truth. Either way, it hurt. "I know," she admitted softly. "And I regret it every day. I wish I could change it. I wish I could undo the past." Kale turned back to the display, but this time Lena noticed a subtle shift. He didn't move away from her, didn't dismiss her completely. A small sign, perhaps, that some part of him still remembered the bond they shared. Before she could say anything else, an alarm blared through the colony. Red lights flashed, casting long shadows on the walls. Lena's heart leapt into her throat. Kale moved instantly, faster than she had ever seen, analyzing the threat on the display. "Lena, stay back," he said firmly. His voice carried authority, sharp and commanding. She nodded, stepping aside, her eyes wide with fear and awe. Kyle moved through the control room with precision, coordinating defense drones, alerting colonists, and neutralizing the threat. Every action was perfect, efficient, but there was no hesitation, no panic, no fear. When the danger passed, The alarms silenced, and the colony lights returned to normal. Lena walked slowly toward him. He was calm now, standing straight, his face unreadable. "Kyle," she began, but he held up a hand, stopping her. "Later," he said simply. "We'll talk later." Lena's heart sank again. Later. That was all she had. But she couldn't give up. She had come this far, faced the changes in him, and survived the fear of rejection. She would wait. She would find a way back to him. As she stepped outside into the cool night air, Lena looked up at the twin moons of Vera Prime. She felt the weight of the past, the uncertainty of the present, and the faint spark of hope for the future. Kale wasn't the same anymore. But perhaps, somewhere inside, he still could be. And she would not give up until she reached that part of him. The next morning, the colony of Vera Prime was quiet. The twin suns had risen high, but the air was still, as if the world itself was holding its breath. Lena walked through the main corridor, her mind replaying every moment from the night before. Kale's performance during the emergency had been incredible, efficient, almost inhuman. She shook her head. She couldn't stop thinking about it. How could one person move, think, and act so fast without hesitation? He was faster than the best soldiers in the colony, smarter than the senior engineers, and yet there had been no emotion in his actions, no fear, no hesitation. Lena knew what she had to do. She had to find out what had happened to him. If she could understand it, maybe she could reach him. Maybe she could bring back the Kyle she knew, the friend, the confidant, the boy who had laughed with her in the labs. She entered the research lab, a large room filled with glowing panels, holographic displays, and rows of humming equipment. Here, she hoped to find answers. "Lena?" a familiar voice called. She turned. Dr. Marin, the colony's chief scientist, approached, holding a tablet. "I saw what happened last night. Kale, he's different, that's for sure. Something in his system has changed." "What do you mean?" Lena asked, her heart beating faster. Marin hesitated. "I mean that whatever he went through on that mission, it wasn't normal. His reflexes, his cognitive abilities, they're beyond human limits. And I suspect his emotional responses are suppressed. Part of him is no longer fully human." Lena's stomach dropped. She had heard rumors about alien technology, experiments done in secret by other civilizations. She had never imagined seeing it firsthand, and she had never thought it could have happened to Kyle. "Do you know what happened to him?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Marin shook her head. "We have reports from the field, a signal, strange energy readings, and then he disappeared for months. We feared the worst. Whatever he experienced, it was beyond our understanding. But one thing is certain. He's changed." Lena clenched her fists. "I have to see him. I need to understand him. I can't just leave him like this." Marin looked at her with concern. "Be careful. Kale. He's not the same. Whatever he is now, he's dangerous in his own way. Not because he wants to hurt anyone, but because he's unpredictable." Lena nodded, determination settling in her chest. She had come this far. She would face whatever Kale had become. Lena found him later in the observation deck, looking out at the endless deserts of Vera Prime. His figure was calm, almost statuesque, bathed in the warm glow of the twin suns. She stepped closer, careful not to startle him. "Kyle," she said softly. He didn't turn immediately. When he finally did, she noticed the slight tension in his shoulders. His eyes, sharp and calculating, met hers. "You're still here," he said. There was no warmth in his tone, just observation. "I have to be," Lena replied. "I can't leave things like this. I need to know what happened to you." Kyle's gaze turned outward again, toward the horizon. "You wouldn't understand," he said, almost as if speaking to himself. "Try me," Lena said firmly. "Please. I need to understand." He sighed, a sound she hadn't heard in years. "It was an alien process," he began slowly. "A civilization far from here. They experimented on me. They said it was to enhance humans, to create a bridge between species. I survived, but I am not the same anymore." Lena's heart ached. "Kyle, they changed you?" He nodded, his expression unreadable. "They enhanced my reflexes, my intelligence, my physical abilities, but they suppressed my emotions. They said emotions interfere with efficiency." Lena swallowed hard. "And now, you can't feel like before." Kyle's eyes flickered just for a moment with something familiar. "I can feel, but it is muted. I remember what it was like. Sometimes, but it's distant, like a voice I can barely hear." The words hit her like a blow. She had hoped that beneath the change, Kyle's humanity would remain intact. And yet, part of him was gone, or at least hidden behind something she could not reach easily. "I don't care," she said softly. "I still care about you. You may be different, but I know the real Kale is still there, somewhere. I'll find him." He studied her for a long moment. "Why?" he asked quietly. "Why do you care so much? After everything, after what happened?" "Because you're my friend," Lena replied. "Because I've lost you once, and I won't lose you again. Because I believe in you." For a moment, Kale's eyes softened, just slightly. Then, almost immediately, his usual coldness returned. "I am not the same," he said firmly. "You need to understand that before you get too close." Lena nodded, though her heart sank. She understood. She would have to be patient. She would have to reach him slowly, step by step. Over the next days, Lena began her investigation in earnest. She spent hours in the lab reviewing the mission logs, analyzing the energy readings, and tracing the signal that had brought Kyle back. Slowly, she began to piece together the events that had changed him. The mission had taken them near an uncharted system, far from human settlements. Kyle had volunteered to explore a mysterious structure, which turned out to be alien in origin. Inside, he had been exposed to a process designed to enhance intelligence and strength, but at a cost. The aliens had not intended to harm him, yet their methods had altered his very being. Lena felt a mix of awe and fear. Kale was now stronger, faster, smarter, but he was also alone, trapped between two worlds, human enough to remember his past, but alien enough to struggle with emotions. She shared her findings with Dr. Marin, who nodded gravely. "If you want to help him, you'll have to find a way to reach his humanity," Marin said. "Logic and reason won't be enough. He needs something personal, something only you can give." Lena thought of all the memories she and Kyle had shared, the nights in the lab, the laughter, the small moments of trust and friendship. She realized that to reach him, she would need to remind him of those moments, to show him that he was not defined by the experiment, by the change, or by the alien process. That evening, Lena found Kale training in the colony's simulation arena. He moved with impossible speed, dodging attacks and countering with flawless precision. Every motion was exact, every strike calculated, yet there was no joy, no emotion, no humanity in his movements. She hesitated at the entrance. "Kyle," she called softly. He stopped mid-motion, turning toward her with a raised brow. "Do you wish to interfere?" he asked, almost coldly. "No," Lena said quickly. I just want to talk, just for a few minutes." Kale studied her, his expression unreadable. Finally, he nodded. "5 minutes," he said. Lena stepped forward, her heart pounding. She spoke carefully, trying to connect. "Do you remember the night before the mission?" she asked. "When we stayed late in the lab and laughed about the experiment failing? You tried to teach me how to recalibrate the drive, and I made a huge mistake." Kale's eyes flickered. For a brief second, she saw the boy she remembered, the friend who had teased her, laughed with her, shared her excitement and fears. Then it disappeared, replaced again by the cold, precise Kyle. "I remember," he said quietly, "but that was long ago. It does not change the present." Lena nodded, though her chest ached. "I know. But I need you to understand how much I regret it. I know my mistake may have led to what happened to you. I wish I could fix it." Kyle was silent for a long moment. Then he looked at her, straight in the eyes. "Regret does not undo the consequences," he said. "It does not bring back what was lost." "I know," Lena whispered, "but maybe it can help us move forward. Maybe we can try again. Not the same as before, but together in some way." Kale's gaze softened slightly. Not fully human warmth, but a trace of it. "Perhaps," he said, almost to himself. As the suns dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows over the arena, Lena felt a glimmer of hope. The Kyle she remembered was not gone. He was buried under layers of change, of alien influence, but she could see him. And she would not give up. For the first time in days, Kale allowed himself to pause, not to fight, not to calculate, but to simply stand and listen. Lena's presence, her words, and her unwavering loyalty had reached a part of him that even he thought lost. And though the road ahead would be long, uncertain, and dangerous, Lena knew one thing. She would do whatever it took to bring him back, step by step, memory by memory, until Kale was no longer lost to the experiment, to the aliens, or to his own fear of feeling. The colony slept under the twin moons, unaware of the silent struggle of two friends trying to reconnect across the impossible divide of change, regret, and transformation. The twin moons of Vera Prime cast pale light across the colony as Lena made her way to the observation deck. A storm of emotions swirled inside her, worry, determination, and a cautious hope. Kale had shown signs of remembering, of feeling. Just a little. But she knew the changes within him were still powerful and unpredictable. Her thoughts were interrupted by a sudden alarm. Red lights flashed across the colony. Loud sirens filled the air. Lena's heart leapt. Kyle. She knew he would be at the center of whatever was happening. She ran toward the control room and saw him already there. He stood calm and collected, scanning holographic screens and issuing commands. Drones and automated defense systems moved under his control, responding instantly to the threat. It wasn't human speed. It was something beyond human, something alien. Lena's breath caught in her throat. Even now, even after everything, Kyle moved like a living weapon. But there was no hesitation, no fear, no humanity. Yet. "Kale!" she shouted, stepping closer. He glanced at her briefly, his eyes sharp and alert. "Stay back," he said firmly. His voice carried authority. It wasn't cold this time exactly. It was commanding. "This is dangerous. Trust me." "I trust you," Lena replied, her voice strong despite the panic rising in her chest. "But I need to help." Before Kale could respond, the source of the alarm became clear. A group of alien mercenaries, armed with strange energy weapons, had landed on the outskirts of the colony. They were moving with precision, their goal clear. Kale. He didn't hesitate. Lena watched as he moved, faster than any human could, intercepting the first wave of attackers with skill and strategy that left even the trained soldiers in awe. Yet, he did not smile. He did not hesitate to strike. Every action was perfect, controlled, detached. Lena realized she couldn't just watch. She grabbed a nearby weapon, a plasma blaster, and followed him. "Kyle, over here!" she shouted. He turned, assessing her quickly. For a brief moment, Lena thought she saw a flicker of recognition, maybe even concern. Then he nodded once, acknowledging her presence. Together they moved toward the front line. The battle began in earnest. Kyle was unstoppable. He dodged attacks before they could fully form, disarmed enemies with inhuman speed, and countered strikes with precision Lena could barely comprehend. The mercenaries were skilled, but they were no match for him. Yet, what struck Lena most wasn't his strength. It was the emptiness in his actions. He moved like a machine. Efficient, deadly, but human warmth was missing. She fought beside him, protecting him when he paused to recalibrate his attacks. And in the chaos, she spoke. "Kale, remember, you're not alone. You're human. You don't have to be just this weapon." He froze for a fraction of a second. Lena saw it. That tiny flicker, recognition, hesitation. Then he shook his head as if to clear it, continuing the fight. But Lena didn't stop. "Kale, I'm here. Look at me. You don't have to lose yourself to this. I know you're still in there." He moved again, faster, stronger, but now Lena noticed something. He wasn't striking as aggressively as before. He hesitated with one opponent, giving them a chance to escape. A small mercy, but a mercy nonetheless. The battle raged on. Energy blasts streaked across the battlefield. Soldiers and colonists were evacuated under Kale's precise orders. Lena marveled at his abilities, but she also felt fear. If Kale lost control, if the alien enhancements overwhelmed him, no one, including her, would be safe. Then one of the mercenaries aimed a weapon directly at Lena. Kale's reflexes kicked in. He intercepted the attack, taking the energy blast in a way that was almost painful to watch. Lena rushed to him. "Kyle, are you okay?" He looked down at her. For the first time, she saw a flash of emotion, fear, concern, something human. "I'm fine," he said quickly, but the softness in his tone betrayed him. Lena felt a surge of hope. He could still care. The battle continued, but Lena and Kyle moved as a team. She covered his flank and he protected the colonists. Slowly, Kale's actions began to show small hints of the person he once was, hesitating when unnecessary harm could come to innocence, choosing efficiency with care rather than cold calculation. Finally, the mercenaries were defeated. They retreated to their ship, leaving the colony battered but safe. Lena and Kale stood together, breathing heavily, surveying the damage. Kyle looked at her, and for a moment his expression softened. "You were right," he said quietly. I remember some of it now. Some of what I used to feel. Some of who I was." Lena stepped closer, relief flooding her chest. "Kale, you're still here. You're still human. I knew you were." He looked away, conflicted. "I am changed. The enhancements, the process, they are part of me now. But maybe I can find a balance. Maybe I can be both." "You can," Lena said firmly. "I'll help you. We'll do it together. You don't have to face it alone." Kyle's eyes met hers, and for the first time in months, she saw something familiar. Trust. Connection. Humanity. The colony began repairing the damage from the attack, but Lena and Kyle didn't move immediately. They stood together side by side, understanding that the real battle, the battle to reclaim Kale's humanity, was just beginning. Kale spoke softly. "I need to understand what it means to be human again. What it means to feel without fear or calculation. But I can't do it alone." "You won't have to," Lena said, smiling. "I'll be here, every step of the way." As the twin moons rose high, casting silver light across the colony, Lena realized that this was the turning point. The Kyle she had loved and trusted was buried under layers of change. But she could reach him. Slowly, step by step, she could bring him back. And Kyle, standing beside her, felt something he hadn't felt in a long time. Hope. The colony of Vera Prime was quiet again, but the tension hung in the air like a storm waiting to break. The attack from the alien mercenaries had left scars, burned walls, shattered equipment, and shaken colonists. Lena moved carefully through the control room, checking systems and speaking with the engineers. She was calm outwardly, but inside, her thoughts kept returning to Kale. He had changed, yes, but more than that, he had begun to reclaim something she thought lost forever: humanity. Yet Lena knew that his journey was far from over. The enhancements within him, the alien process that had altered his body and mind, were still part of him, and soon the aliens who had experimented on him would return. Kale appeared in the doorway, his tall silhouette framed by the twin suns setting in the distance. He looked at her, and for the first time in weeks, he smiled. Just a small human smile, but enough to light something inside Lena's chest. "You're still working too hard," he said quietly. Lena laughed softly. "I have to. And you? You look different, calmer." Kale nodded. "I've been thinking about what you said, about humanity, about myself, and I realized I can't keep living like this, part machine, part human. I need to make a choice, but it's not easy." Lena stepped closer. "Kale, whatever choice you make, I'll be here. You don't have to face it alone." He studied her for a long moment, as if measuring the weight of her words. "I can't undo the enhancements. They are part of me. But I can decide how to use them. I can choose to embrace the human part of myself and control the alien part. Or I can let the alien part dominate and lose what I remember of humanity." Lena's heart raced. "Then choose humanity," she said firmly. "You're stronger than the enhancements. You always have been." Kale's eyes softened. "I hope so." The night passed slowly. Lena stayed by his side, helping him train, reminding him of small human experiences: laughter, touch, empathy, and memory. Every gesture, every word reached him in ways he hadn't realized he needed. Kale began to act not only with precision, but with intent, showing care and thought behind every movement. Then, a warning signal blared across the colony. The same alien mercenaries had returned, but this time they brought something new. Massive ships hovered above the colony, energy weapons glowing like angry stars. Lena felt her pulse quicken. Kale's eyes narrowed, and for a moment she saw the old Kale, the fighter, the protector, the friend who would not back down. "They're coming for you," Lena said softly. Kale's jaw tightened. "I know, and this time, I won't run. I won't let them control me." Together, they rushed to the command center. Kyle quickly analyzed the ship's trajectory, calculating the best strategy to defend the colony. But Lena noticed something different. He wasn't moving with cold detachment. He hesitated when civilians were in danger, adjusted his strategy to protect them, and even called out to help them evacuate safely. "You're different," Lena said quietly. Watching him, Kale looked at her, his eyes serious. "I'm learning. You've taught me I can be both strong and human." The battle began in earnest. Alien ships fired energy blasts that shook the colony. Kale moved with incredible speed, disarming weapons, neutralizing attackers, and coordinating the defense. Lena stayed close, helping where she could, protecting colonists and keeping communication lines open. At one point, Kale saw a blast heading straight for a group of children. Time seemed to slow. He had the speed to stop it instantly, but for a fraction of a second he paused. Lena noticed it. He hesitated, not because he was unsure, but because he cared. That hesitation, tiny as it was proof that his humanity was returning. He acted quickly, saving the children and ensuring their safety. Lena's heart soared. Kyle could still feel. Kyle could still care. The alien ships pressed harder, forcing Kyle to push his abilities to the limit. Lena watched in awe as he moved, faster than anyone could follow, stronger than any human could be, yet always mindful of those around him. His alien enhancements gave him power, but his human heart guided how he used it. Finally, after hours of intense struggle, the aliens began to retreat. Their ships were damaged, their forces broken, and Kale's determination had proven stronger than their will. The colony was safe, for now. Kale sank to the ground, exhausted but alive. Lena rushed to him, kneeling beside him. "You did it," she said softly. "You protected everyone." He looked at her, breathing heavily. "I couldn't have done it without you," he admitted. His voice carried weight, warmth, and a hint of emotion that had been missing for so long. Lena smiled, tears in her eyes. "You've always been able to do great things, Kyle. You just needed to remember who you were." Kyle studied her face, his eyes searching. "I remember now," he said quietly. "I remember what it means to care, to feel, to be human. And I choose to keep that." Lena reached out and took his hand. "I'm proud of you," she whispered. He squeezed her hand gently, a simple gesture filled with meaning. For the first time in months, Kale felt whole. Not just a survivor of an alien experiment, not just a weapon, but a human being capable of love, care, and choice. The days that followed were calm, but filled with purpose. Kyle trained with the colony, helping them improve defenses, but always with careful attention to human life. Lena worked beside him, guiding him, reminding him of the simple joys and small connections that defined humanity. Together, they began rebuilding what had been damaged, not just the colony, but their friendship and trust. One evening, Lena and Kale stood on a hill overlooking the settlement. The twin moons shone brightly above, casting silver light across the landscape. The air was calm, the stars twinkling like distant diamonds. "You've changed everything," Lena said softly. "Not just for yourself, but for the colony too." Kale nodded. "I've changed, but not all because of the aliens. You reminded me that I'm still human, that I can choose who I am." Lena smiled. "And what will you choose?" He looked at the horizon, then back at her. "I choose to be both, human and strong. I choose to protect, to care, and to live as myself, not just what the aliens made me. And I choose to stay here, with you, with the people I care about." Her heart swelled. "Then we'll face everything together," she said. "Whatever comes, we'll do it together." Kyle reached out and gently pulled her into an embrace. It was a quiet moment, yet it held everything: trust, forgiveness, hope, and the promise of the future. The colony below them buzzed with life, unaware of the silent vow exchanged above. Kyle and Lena stood together, a living proof that even after betrayal, loss, and unimaginable change, humanity could endure. The twin moons shone down, and for the first time in a long while, Kyle allowed himself to smile fully, not just with his lips, but with his heart. He was no longer just the alien-enhanced survivor. He was Kale, human, strong, and whole. Lena looked up at him, eyes shining. "We've come a long way," she whispered. "Yes," Kyle said, holding her close. "And this is only the beginning." They stood together as the night stretched across Vera Prime, their hands intertwined, their hearts aligned, and their bond unbroken. No alien force, no past mistake, and no transformation could erase the connection they had rebuilt. Kale had made his choice, and in doing so, he had reclaimed himself. And Lena, who had never given up, had shown that forgiveness, loyalty, and hope could bridge even the greatest divide. The stars above twinkled like witnesses to their journey, a silent promise that no matter the future, humanity, and the heart of one human in particular, would prevail.